Hi everybody. There was 8, now there's 6. Cool. We're going down before we start. Now we're down to 5. Now we're going down to 4. We've halved our number in about 30 seconds. Good evening, Wendy. I don't know what I've done to the other ones. Frightened everyone away, I think. Oh, excuse me. Down to 3 now. Mass exodus. It's only going to be you and me in a minute, Wendy. I don't know what's going on, but there you go. Down to 2. Yeah, it's just you and me, Wendy. Derek, Kerry, good evening. There's 3. I was getting worried for a second that we had nobody. 4. Oh, they're crawling back. That's good. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Derek. Good evening, Keith. Good evening, Wendy. Pretty warm in here tonight. Ben, good evening. Nearly had a big near miss just now. Dear. Denise, good evening. Michael, good evening. I'm just sitting here for a minute just to let people catch up with the stream. Jean, good evening to you. Nice of you to join us from California. You make 4. Yeah, we're 7 now, Michael, but thanks very much. I was getting a bit worried. I thought I'd said something to upset everybody and everyone like blanked me as soon as I went live. But we're getting back up to where we were. We started off at 8, we're back up to 9 now. That's good. And 10 and climbing. And this is the first acrylic that I've done. My voice seems to be going a little bit funny. I hope that's not going to be all evening. I do apologise. Judith, good evening to you. They're awful. I'm just going to wet the top of this palette. A little spray. It is very warm. Just want to keep the paint active. David, good evening to you, sir. And we are getting up there, I think. Give it a couple more minutes and we'll get started. Hope everybody's had a good weekend. Mine ends today. Mine is Sunday and Monday as opposed to the standard Saturday and Sunday. Okay, so tonight is as I say, it's my first acrylic for you. Now the palette that I've got laid out here is on what's called a Stay Wet palette. Now this is a commercial one from a company called Dale Rowney. It's one of their bigger ones. They're not cheap. And they are just a preformed plastic with a lid. You can, of course, get cheaper ones from other companies, and you can also quite happily make your own. And I can describe that later on to people. John, good evening to you, sir. Thanks for joining us. So yeah, but basically there's a damp membrane underneath this with a almost like grease proof on top, which will allow you to keep the paint on top from immersing, mix on and keeping it damp, and then every so often in the hot weather just give it a little spray with water. and that will keep it all very, very active, so that's not a problem at all. And then when you finish, you put the lid back on, which is this. You put this back on and it will keep it nice and damp moving forward to the next day and the next day and the next day. Now it's not completely, it's not going to do the job forever, but it will keep it going for a good while. Now if you've got the smaller one, if you've got a either a deep recessed dinner plate or something else that's got a small recess and a lid to it, then you can keep it in the fridge, and that will keep the stuff going even longer. And the reason you keep it in a fridge is purely and simply that acrylics has an organic binder, and because it's an organic binder, in the heat and the warmth, certainly in summertime, microbes that easily get your cheese, your fish, your bread, etc., will also attack this, and it will start going furry very, very quickly in the warmth, and it will also have an acrid smell about it. And all it is microbes that are attacking the organic binder and rendering the paint pretty much useless. So yeah, it's worth noting that if you can keep a palette like this in a fridge, you'll keep it going. As long as your husbandry of the palette and you keep it in good order when you're working, it should last you a good couple of weeks or more. Yes, it does, David. Yeah, it keeps it going. Righto, let's get started then. Now, as for oil, you have a choice. You can either draw. No, that's a good brush. Look at that. Rock hard. Now, I've got to say before we start, Robbie, can you buy the liner that goes inside? I've now got an SAA one with my hat. Yeah, you can do, but you don't really need to, John. Basically, if you just use, I actually didn't have a base for this tonight. This is a new one, but I didn't have a base for it. I've obviously used them elsewhere. And all I did is put about 4 layers of kitchen roll in the bottom, wet that off, squeeze out the absolute wetness so it's nice and damp, and then put the membrane greaseproof or something of that nature over the top to allow you to carry on working. Don't use tracing paper. A lot of people tend to dive off and get a pad of tracing paper thinking that tracing paper with water on it just gives up the ghost very quickly. So I wouldn't use tracing paper, but greaseproof is a great substitute. Goes on for ages, and it's a lot cheaper than going out and buying proprietary replacements. Okay, he says for a second time. Now I was going to say that you must forgive me because I actually haven't done any acrylics for, I can't remember the last acrylic I painted, an awfully long time, and it took me a little while to remember where I put all my stuff, to be quite honest with you, but I found it. We got there in the end, not a big deal. Alright, so I'm going to start doing this Fal boat. Fal boat being a Falmouth working boat from the River Fal at Falmouth, of course. All takes its name from the river, and these are based on the old oyster boats that work there, and these boats are ex-working boats, the same as the southeast and the east coast has its Thames barges, so these have the Fal Working Boat, and very often these are raced up and down between St Mawes and Falmouth, and they're a pretty sight when they're all really leaning into the wind. It's quite nice to see them all. Let's just catch up with the chat. Yeah, Dan, I mean, you got to be a little bit careful, Ben, but I've got to say to you that in my box here, and this is just a few, years and years ago, and I'm going back over 20 years now, I used to demonstrate for all the big shows for Liquitex, and back in the day I could order whatever I wanted from Liquitex and it just turned up in boxfuls, and it was really exciting. And I have a whole huge trough of paint out in the garage, but this one, for instance, this you can't buy this colour anymore. It was banned under European whatever back in the day. But the thing is that this paint is over 25 years. It's a very old tube of paint. And as all my old Liquitex ones are over 25 years. I've also gone on to Winsor & Newton Professional Colour too. I use these, I prefer these, but these are very good too. And I used them for many years and still do. Here's another one, over 25 years old. And the paint inside is as good today as it was the day I bought them or were given them. So, you know, it's not necessarily the age of the paint. Although I will state that the unique properties of the earlier tubes of Liquitex, whether they were in a plastic tube, unlike all the other manufacturers that were in the zinc sort of metal tubes, and if they get a fracture in them, or if the lid doesn't fit too well, then they will start to drown and air can get in, and that's what can cause your problem. When you use something like a Liquitex tube, certainly the old ones, and indeed I think they still use them. This is a more modern one. This is a soft body. They also do a heavy body, which is the equivalent of what I just shown you. But they have this plastic, and when you open the lid and you squeeze it to push it out, it will suck back, and it sucks back in any problems, and it doesn't fracture. So it really is a good tube for long term. Keith, I used plastic tray inside chamois leather and greaseproof. Yeah, all works. Joan, everybody, I opened a tube yesterday and thought the stink bomb had gone off and threw it away in the yuck. It can happen. It can happen. Just make sure that air cannot get to it, that the lid is on properly, and you keep it squeezed down to its limits. Anyway, I'm not painting at the moment. I better had, or else I'm going to get told off by you guys. So I'm just putting a little mix together, and I want to simply draw my boat. Now, I've got a choice. This is what I was going to say to you about things were that the picture is almost 50-50, my picture. Yours is a little bit different. In fact, I think you've got a different picture than the one I'm painting from. So I must have moved mine. Let me just find the one that I seek. I think the one you've got is a different picture, and I put it up by mistake when I was looking. I got so many of this little scene, so you must forgive me on that one. The one I'm going to do is where are we? Yes, the one I'm going to do is the boat is a little further out from the headland than the one you're seeing, so there will be, before anyone says anything, there will be a slight differential between what you're seeing there and the one that I've got. I'm just going to put in a very quick line for suggesting, and I can't even get it straight, look at that. A nice straightish line for the horizon. Well, one of them. Dear, you can't make this up. Alright, let's go in and put a second line in, and that will give us two areas to think about. One is going to be this piece of headland which comes up high. It has got a name. I, for the life of me, can't think what it is. It's a well-known piece of spit of land on the opposite side of the inlet that forms St. Mawes Harbour. So we need to make sure that this is around about right. Now my boat, I suspect, is going to have to move in a little bit anyway, probably closer to what you've got. I can't find, because it wouldn't be a problem for me to paint it exactly the same one. It must be here. I'm sure it must be here. I just got to put my hands on the right picture. Come on. That's looks like it. There's too much. Bear with me while I just go quiet a little bit. Well, okay, I'm not quite sure, but I'm going to sort of probably stick somewhere to where I was. Now, I've got to look at the angle of the mast, and the mast sits back ever so slightly. And we will put in the mast, just centering it down like so. And then we're going to put the boat in. Now, the boat comes just short. If we've got this here, which we are suggesting, or what I'm suggesting is, I need a bigger brush to do this. One that will carry a little bit more pigment to it. A little bit of blue, a little bit of brown. Just take that line through and suggest that that is our lower horizon line. And then our boat, therefore, will come a shave underneath that. So let's put it in there. And I am just drawing with paint, and like oil, if it's not right, it can be moved, you can change it, although with this you can not have to rub it out, but you can literally paint straight over once it's dry. That's one of the beauties of acrylics, but there are disadvantages too, which we can discuss during the course of this, if you so wish. Now, they always have a sprit, and the sprit is always angled downward. As you can see with this one, it looks like it's a piece of bent old matchstick, but it really is the way it is. I got to thank you. I might give a Stay Wet palette a go. I would, definitely, I would. It's much better than sort of having paint dry up on plastic. I get so frustrated trying to tell people that if you have it on a piece of plastic, and I see people paint on, use them on watercolor palettes, all sorts of things, and it just really does not work. I'm going to put in my sail. Now, I want this bigger, so why am I not doing this bigger? This should be up here somewhere. I'm not thinking. I'm going to bring the mast up, and I should be measuring. That's what I should be doing. So how many of my little boat lengths can I get into the mast? Well, actually, the boat should be, say, there, and that will be about right. So to there. So I've either got to make my boat a wee bit bigger. So let's make our boat bigger, give it more presence, and it rises out on the stern. There's a nice little shallow section there, and let's just put this darker painting, a bit of dark paint in for the moment, just to suggest the boat itself. I'm painting very, very thinly. Now, there is a warning for that too, which I will give to you. And that is the fact that if you paint acrylics too thin, if you mix them down too far with water, then you do run the risk of the molecules not bonding together, and therefore flaking later on can possibly happen. Not saying it will, it just possibly can. And I say the same, I see a lot of people in the model railway industry, or hobby, that are mixing down their acrylics to very, very thin watery consistencies. And we always used to say that if it was over 80% water, you do run that risk. Now, that all said and done, a bit of paper, that all said and done, they do make washes out of it, but you need to replace the water with a binder. And so you can make a good wash out of something like Free Flow, Flow Aid, or something of that nature, which is pure acrylic binder in a very watery consistency, and you can add and get the same fluidity to the paint without losing the bonding capabilities that is acrylic. The last thing you want to do is end up with models where you've got flaking paint coming off because it can't hold on to the plastic. Now, I might be wrong in that, and I do always, in anything I say or do, stand to be corrected. We can always get it wrong. Now, I'm just looking at this first. I'm getting a little bit away from myself, and I'm just going to come in and just check the angle of this boat. And then I want to put in that topsail comes down in a nice line. What has happened? Sorry about that. Something turned on my computer. I wasn't quite sure what was going on. Right, nice steep angle to this, and a nice taut line, which I'm just going to use straight edge for. Nice taut line to this mast, slight curvature to the back, and we get the foremast set up. Now, like we have that extra sail on the Thames barge, this one is almost straight up on itself, like so, and gives the mast more height, more stature. And then you've got this here is the back, and this one starts about 2/3 up that mast, comes out like so, at that sort of angle, I think, and the top one has that sort of shape in there. Now, the problem with painting this sort of subject matter is that it goes into my gallery that sells my work down in St Mawes. I've got a gallery that represents me down there, which is fantastic. It's called the Waterside Gallery. It's a lovely gallery, and if you're ever down in St Mawes, or indeed if you want a Cornish painting of some note, then it's worth checking out James and the gallery and his wife, because they are lovely people and they sell a variety of different artists in there, and some I know as friends, others I've never heard of, but their work is very, very exciting. So it's always worth checking that out. I'm just going to straighten this up. This comes up even straighter. Once I get this part done, then the rest, I'm going to say, is plain sailing. Do excuse the pun, couldn't resist it. But it will be plain sailing. Shush. Take that out to there. Now then, let's just check. This has got a lovely shape to it, and the boat is not under pressure. It's not under full sail. It's under full sail, but it's not leaning in. It's coming to the end of the race. It's on its return trip to St Mawes. In fact, the crew are taking their time, just standing around on the deck, enjoying the scenery and the sunny afternoon that they find themselves on. I need to just take that down a bit more and out that way, give it a little bit more here, and then we can just see a little bit of the stern just there, and it comes down a tad and then back into the water. Hopefully any corrections we need to make, we can make further on. I'm just going to go in with a little bit of blue just to suggest the distant headland around the other side of the bay. I'm using a little bit of blue for that, it's no problem. Now you can see that my boat is a different photograph than yours from the angle that we've got this piece of headland, but I'm going to bring this out a little further, and I think I wanted to bring that out a little further. I don't know, I keep looking at that, not too sure. I think we got enough sail, and I'm going to leave it there for a minute. This headland, by the way, is way off, and I don't know quite where it is, whether or not we're looking Falmouth, whether this is towards Porthleven, or whether yes, Porthleven. It could be, or it could even be past Porthleven, but it's certainly well beyond Falmouth, and so yeah, it's coming up to there, and I'm going to bring it down a lot shorter, but it then comes along that way. Right, Sue, good evening to you. And let's take out the back like so, and there's our nice piece of headland. We've got some dark water which comes up to about there, so that will be our distant horizon line through there and out through the back there, and that gives us a little sooner we can bring this headland in. I wasn't sure where to start it, but I'm going to bring it to about there and let that then come down. I think may even be just back a little bit to there, and a little kick in the stone, and then that comes down to the bare rock that is quite tidal. You can see the height on some of the tidal rise and fall against the shapes of the rocks, and by the time it gets to this side it's gone, it's underwater. So I just want to strengthen now. I'm going to use a slightly bigger brush, slightly wider one. I've got a lot of these very old brushes that I've been using. They're not particularly great brushes. I don't do so much acrylic painting these days as I once did. I don't know why. I don't get a lot of time, so it is what it is. Now I'm not too sure how this paint will go on this surface. Never painted it on this type of surface before, and I'm hoping it will dry and stay there. It's quite a shiny surface, so I was a little worried. I did try a bit and it seemed to be okay, but you can never be too sure. Right, I'm going to put in this big set of trees which nestle on the top, going upwards and over the top of this. I've been actually walking around on this side. You can get to it quite easily by driving around the coastline to get to the other side, and it's very, very dramatic all the way through this area. And you have wonderful views across the open waters into the Fal River, the headland of course of Falmouth. Right, bring that down. There's a bump there, and I think the height there is about where it should be. Might even take that way out there like so, and we got our shape of our hill that comes up through there, and there's a little steep clefty bit that cuts in about there. Just make provision for that. Just leave it there. I'm painting very, very thinly, as you can see, just allowing to see where shapes are to make sure that before I proceed my drawing is about where it wants to be. Steve, good evening to you. Wow, Ontario, thank you for joining us. Okay, so we will carry on, and I will just keep tapping in and blocking in these shapes. Now I wish I had an even bigger brush here. I don't. The biggest one is I've stolen one from my oils, but it's an unused one for the oils, so that's a little point. If you've got oil brushes, please don't try and use them for acrylics. They will not like having been used for oils and will probably cause you some problems down the road, as it were. So I think that's representing maybe a bit more blue into that to represent the sort of staining on the rocks from the tide through there. So we're obviously coming in at low tide and almost slack water. There's very little movement in the wind or anything at all. So there's our beautiful boat, and I'm just going to suggest the nice pleat in there from the billowing. It's not as taut with wind. As I said, it's a fairly slack, windy, windless day. Whether it was earlier in the racing, I don't know. But these are pretty magnificent boats when you see them. I can assure you there's a little bit of a pleat gather in there too. Alright, now I'm going to carry on blocking in for a moment. I'm just going to put in some blues for our distance. That's a little bit too blue, a little bit generous, so I'm going to come in with a bit of red. One thing I've always thought about acrylics, if I'm very honest with you, is that I find them color-wise extremely garish. They never seem, It's almost like a sled hammer to a nut. There's no subtlety in an acrylic colour. It's boom, in your face. It's there. And I've got no real big problem with that. It's just that I just find that they are what they are, and they don't have the finesse in terms of colour, pigmentation, subtlety that oils do. So really and truly, that's just an opinion. I'm not saying it's the right situation. It's just how I see them, and have always done so. Anyway, I digress. I'm going to carry on. We're going to blot out some of our earlier drawing at this point and take our coastline down to the water's edge through here. Same thing about this particular type of canvas, over than above that of oil on it. You still need to work to get some of the little holes that created by this linen, get them filled up. If it's a problem for you, then it could be, you know. So anyway, yeah. Right. Now then, I got a sneaky feeling, Steve, that my son did some uni work. He was at university in your neck of the woods about a year or so back. I think it was Ontario. I'm sure it was. But yes, he was doing a lot of film work, and he was on an exchange from the UK, because he was at university down in Falmouth. This is how I came to fall in love with Falmouth and all things Cornwall, to be quite honest with you. So anyway, let's carry on. Right. A bit more blue, a little deeper as it goes up to the top. I've got a little bit of umber sneaking in to the back of this, and that's not a problem. It just takes it off the pure blue. And this is nowhere near a finished project yet. We're just still looking at all the different shapes and forms. I'm just trying to literally build in what I think should be. We've got a real dark patch, and I'm going to put some umber, definite umber into that. And it's like there is a slip of water through this area here that goes on up past there, which is catching the wind, so it's creating a ripple, and therefore it's changing the colour values on the water at that point. And it does come all the way into the back of the boat, so let's get that into here, and we can play around with any colours that aren't or should be in a different position later. I just want to sort of isolate the boat where I feel it should be, and that's about where it should be, I think. Now I am painting thinly, as I said, and at some point I will have to change tack on that. Sorry about all these nautical terms creeping in tonight, guys. It wasn't intended, but it's just the way it's happening. Okay, I'm just going to raise that up there a little bit to where I think it should be. Now it's at a different level to this side, of course, because this is a far headland, and that will go through there, and we've got a lot closer with this one here. So I'm just literally almost just staining the canvas at this point. Certainly doesn't have the coverage that oil paint does, got to be said. Yeah, come into here with the same colour. Alright. Have a little glug, if that's okay. Bear with me. And let's crack on and let's build some strength in the sky. I'm changing to the dagger, which is an ivory dagger. It's just a different bristle to the normal one that I use. Not a problem. I'm going to come in with a lot of white. Now I've got two whites. You can't see them off camera. Or can you just see them? Actually, I think you can see them. Yes, just about. There is a hard body white. This is a thick impasto white that is a normal one that we're used to. On the other side is a soft body white. It's just got more fluidity to it. And I'm never used too much of it, so I'm going to sort of try it and see. But I just want to get on a lot of pigment very, very quickly. I'm going to mix some of the normal white to it too. A little bit of cerulean blue. And this always makes me laugh. This cerulean never appears to be like cerulean. It is. It's called cerulean, but it just doesn't come across like that for me. It's a very different blue when it comes to an oil. There's a lot of almost cobalt warmth into this, where true cerulean in my book should be a lot yellower, but hey ho, who am I to know? It's just the way it comes across in my book. I add quite a bit of white to that, and that soft body white is really doing an excellent job of getting this colour on and covering nicely for me. I'm just going to come and eat right into my tree, because it really doesn't matter. Again, I'm not having to worry. Once this is dry, then I can carry on working, and that's its win-win over oils. Although the losing aspect of this is, how do you keep it wetter longer from drying? If you want to do and work with this stuff like an oil, what do I do? What do you have? What can you do? Well, there's not a lot. You can put extenders in, which is one thing. You can buy certain extenders on the market which will help you retard and hold back the drying ability of this paint. Now you've got to bear in mind that when this paint was created, it was created and sold as an alternative to oils, because oils did this, so you need to use this. And you know, it sort of spent the rest of its life trying to mimic oils by having water soluble oils, which I have, between you and I, always found a bit of a joke. But there you go. I've added a little bit of violet into that mix now as we're coming down into this area. I'm adding some of that red in. Now I've definitely come away from the blue up here, but it's just gone a little nicer, a little bit more subtle as it comes down. Nice and warm. Coming down into our distant land. I'm going to put a little bit more blue, picking up a little bit of dioxazine purple into that. Take that down, and it does rise as I've got it. I thought it was a little bit too steep, and it's not far out. Using the dagger to all its degree if I can, and then bring that back into the sail. Now I want this sky to be quite dark at this point, and not too light as you would normally bring a sky down and be. So I'm just going to allow that come in. I may have to change some of that again in a moment, but I want to take this up to there and back down. In here there is a little, I thought there was a difference. Actually, it's not a difference. What it is a shadow which is mimicking the sky almost. So I'm going to leave that like that for the moment and address it again in a moment as well. And back over to this side. That's a little bit too blue. Let's come in with a bit more white and maybe a bit of that red to pop it back to the violet. I'm working as fast as I can, trying to block this sky in as quickly as possible. Nice thing about this dagger brush is you've got some lovely ways of using it. And doesn't matter what the medium is, watercolor, oil, acrylic, it matters not. It does the same job in all media and works extremely well at doing that job. Okay, a bit more white. How are we doing? Have I missed any chat? Are you using any medium? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Which medium are you just adding water? Just adding water as needed, Ben. I don't need to extend it because I'm working too fast to bother with the extenders. Flow aids are useful if you want to use lines that will not break up upon you. In other words, if you are using for rigging and other stuff, or you want a long continuous line, then you can use a flow aid, which is extremely good. And you can also use flow aid as a modeler to extend and create your washes with acrylic and make acrylic washes, but without losing their ability to dry correctly, because you will have replaced water with another organic or acrylic binder, and that's the importance. Just going to take that in a nice straight line. I got it light where I want it, but too light here, so I'm just going to come back in and change that value down a little bit. Get rid of that. There's a definite line of blue I don't really want. Okay, I'm going to leave that to there. Just take that a little bit further over so I can come back in with the white and not lose anything there. I'm going to come up there with that blue. That's the beauty of that dagger brush. Look how straight that line was and easy to make. Now I'm going to come up with just some more cerulean blue. I could actually tap just the merest touch of lemon yellow to that blue and just push it towards the green ever so slightly, and you'll see how, to me, that becomes a little bit more cerulean in terms of overall effect by adding that little touch of lemon. It's too much, but it's not bad. But it's certainly, to me, more cerulean than that comes out of the tube. But that's just my opinion, as I did say. Just my opinion. But I quite like the use of the greenish colour anyway, because there is that strip of quite a greenish line through here. A bit more green than that there. Some more cerulean and a little tap more of lemon yellow. And let's just push that back to that green again. Make quite a bit of it because they're going to push it all the way through here into this tree line and beyond. And take it all the way through this way. It will then come down. It's almost the sky as it should be, and what is floating between it is a little bit of a cloud which has got that violet look to it. So I'm going to actually make full use of that. Keep this nice and green, like so. And there's a definite top to it too, so let's just take that along. And through here. There you go, a bit more. Actually comes down a little bit to the top of the boat, which would be about there with that flag. We're just going to miss it in my version. I'm not worried. As long as we're in the ballpark, that's good enough. There we go. Alright. I quite like that colour very much, I do. So I'm going to come back through now and just violet up and put a little bit of umber into the blue. So a little bit of that, a little bit of cerulean, a little bit of the brown. Just going to play around with putting what I think is that sort of cloud type affair that's running along the top there like so. That's good. Nice, clear, quick, nice cloud. Nice cloud like that. And let's run it through here too. And as it changes through the values, especially to this light area, so it just changes the way you see and perceive it. I think that works. It's a little bit different to the original, but I quite like that. I'm going to run it through here let it come on and finish off, going off up the top here. Maybe a little light going through there, it's not bad. That just suggests that the blue is returning above it, so it could almost be a top warmth to that cloud. And then of course there is just a little bubble of white cloud above it, which we will put in quickly now and we can play around with, because it's not as white as that. It may appear white, but it's not. If anything, it's got a little bit of warmth into it, little pinkish towards the end of the afternoon, just as it's drifting away. So it's got a nice pink glow, and then of course it's got a little bit of shadow too, which we will also put in. I'm just going to bring that through there like so. Tap that away. And another little bit I just seen just down there somewhere, just as it's all disappearing. Okay, that's fine. Right, now then, where are we? Water. Let's knock the rest of this sky into shape. I'm going to come and mix some of that blue into some of this violet. So I'm going to come in, tap of that greenish colour again, not too much. Just lessen it with a bit of that. And just bring some of this into play through here. A little bit more light. Too much light. Come back in. Just nice free playing around with this. Knowing that the thing about acrylics is, of course, that, you know, pretty much, unless you're silly with it, you can just go back in and go over it when it's dry. Sometimes with oils, of course, you've got to wait or wipe it back or change whatever you're doing. That's better. And this just gives you that much freedom. But I will say there's a caveat to that too, because over the years I have often, whether I wanted to or not, gravitated to putting detail in onto a painting, especially with my wildlife paintings. And those of you who know my wildlife work will know what I mean. And the thing is that when you've got oil paint, sometimes you don't get the level and degree of detail that you might do. You can get it, but it takes an awful long time to get there with that. So you tend to become a little looser, a little fresher, which to me is where I like to be. But when I get an acrylic painting going, then because I can just mess around and keep, like now I'm scumbling over the top of what I've put down, because this is all dry and I can just go straight in. And the thing is that with water, unlike oil, when you got oil, the tension of oil is so much greater than the tension of water. And if you went further and used a tension breaker like flow aid, which breaks and disperses the water tension and creates even more flowability, but you can get very, very thin, very, very detailed lines in acrylic, which are a little harder to sort out and get in oil. So it's worth bearing in mind, because what I tend to do, and I hate myself for doing it, because I always say when I start an acrylic, there's no way I'm going to do it this time. And lo and behold, by the time I get to the end of the picture, I've done it. And that is that I start sacrificing freshness for detail, because I know that I can paint in such greater degrees of finality with acrylics over oils, just because of that one factor that you can actually have greater degree of water or flexibility, because you're not using the oil as tension over water. I think I made that clear. I probably laboured it to death, but you get the idea. And just coming back in here and changing some of this colour too. I think it went a little bit too on the warm side, so I'm just playing around with some of these blues. mixing up the sky visually so that you get a different look. And I'm just going to bring that through into that warmer colour. If I can pick enough paint up, I will. There you go. Just going to play around with a bit of that, just mess it around, put some of the greens to the violets, and so the eye mixes the sky as it sees it visually, as opposed to just seeing extremely different colours. I hope that's the plan. We're almost there with the sky, and then we can carry on. The boat will probably be left till the last, but I've got to move quite fast because we've got a lot of ground to cover. A couple of little white pieces through there, just going to stick those in and just finish off. Like I said, sometimes to get that coverage where you want it is a little bit harder than you think. Come in there. You could actually use some Naples yellow. It's not bad either for doing a very similar job. Just glazing some in and around this area here. Just taking some down into that shape around that sail. I've got a wonderful oil painting outside in the garage that is only half finished, and it's two of these boats racing each other going this way out towards Falmouth. Do you know, I've never finished it. I uncovered it the other day and looked at it and thought I really must sort of sit down and take the trouble to finish this piece, because it was a delightful little painting. Okay, so I'm just going to let that visually mix for you, the greens and the violets, which are quite light, that combination. I've used it before and it does work quite well. Just going to bring one or two extra little bits of that sort of coming through. And tucking that into this tree line, which goes up underneath. These are nice conifer trees, or I don't know what, if they're conifers or not. I'm not sure what they are, but they just, yeah, they're just there. They're lovely. And they come out over here and just build themselves. And this, and wherever you see this from, it's just an iconic shape on the rock. Okay, just going to take that down there because I can always come back the other way. I sort of think that's a little steep. I really said it just now. I'm still not convinced that it's not. So I'm going to put that in like so and have the opportunity to take it back out if I want to. But there's our sky, I think, pretty much done. It's a lot darker on top than the photo suggests. But I'm not unhappy with that because I wanted it to show up certain aspects of this. So I may come back in and lighten it later. I don't know yet. I'm just going to put in a little bit of shadow. Sorry. Put my teeth back in properly. A little bit of shadow to those up through there. Leave them there. I can work on those more later if I wish to. Have I missed any chat? No, I don't think so. We've lost a few people. So I'm hoping that this is okay and we're doing alright. Right, I am going to come in with a big dark mark, which is the tops of these trees. Now it's going to be, I'll put out some green. It's pretty much the only green I have. So I'm going to use that and mix that up with other colours like the ultramarine blue, a little bit of dialcazine purple in there too, really to darken down this mass, and then I will bring up the lights along the way as I feel the need. Now my blues have all moved into one big pile, not what I had planned for them. But this will set up as a nice big block of colour, like so, just a few areas that suggest sky holes, like that. Let them come cascading down in the form that they do, little rises here, and then we'll tap them out into the sky and we can make more of that in a little while. I just want to try and get the general shape and form of this grouping. And there's a little stand that is there, and that isn't a block, I know, but we will come back and play around with that. There is our lovely little one, isolated little mushroomy type one there, and we come down the side of the hill into this area, and some of this is tree and some of this is mere shadow. So we will play around with both ideas. Got a little bit of white opaque into that. So we're just going to come back in and clear this down to that level, just above that shape which I've just moved. And we've got our stand of trees coming down, down, down. And then that breaks away to a much lighter green, which I'm going to use a medium acrylic yellow, a medium cad yellow, just to, oh, that's very acidic. Let's come back in and tweak that down with some cobalt. Take that off. No need to really take it off, but I did. That still needs a lot more work. So let's come in with a darker blue. Let's come in with some bluer values of, there we go, ultramarine. Did the job, come to the rescue. And bring that out, down. Very green, I know, right now, but there will be other values added to and subtracted from as we move forward with this. That coming into there, suggesting they're going up into the stand of trees, creating different forms of shadows, etc. And up into there. And then just sort of play around where you can't quite see where starts and stops happen. And take that in a nice line through there and along there to about there. It just lightens up. I think we've still got a bit of that yellowish colour. Just enough to put that in there, catching the light on the edge. And let that dry up now. Another time for another drink. Thirsty work, all this talking. Alright, I'm going to come in with a little bit of yellow ochre now. And that lovely colour that I told you about, you can't get anymore, called Aqua Gold. And it is such a wonderful colour. It's a transparent orangey colour. It's absolutely amazing. A friend of mine from years ago, I haven't actually spoken to him for so long. He knew that I had loads of tubes of this originally, and when he found out that they didn't make it anymore, he chased me for a long time to get some, because he used it extensively in his painting, and it was sort of no longer available to him. Right, I'm just going to put that through there, and that gives us a lovely colour to our land. A little bit going up into that green there, as it's the start of the rocks. And one or two areas through there, and a little cut through there. And just cool some of that down as well. So light and cool going in, that's like catching the sun there. There's lots of lights and darks going on in here. I'm going to put the lights in to begin with. I know I normally say you should go the other way, but on this occasion I'm quite happy that I'm doing the way I want. And just bring that through on the top of those rocks which are stained through tidal flow over the years. Take that to there. So it's starting to build our headland now. And so let's look at our sea. Now the sea, I'm going to use an awful lot of phthalo blue, cerulean blue, and I'm going to touch in a little bit of umber. I want to run that all the way through here. It's very blue at the moment. Come in with maybe some of that, some ultramarine blue, a little bit of that, making it a bit more violety, but I don't want it to stay there, so I'm going to come still back in with some umber just to take it away from the purity of the blue. we can always play around later and add over. I just really want to get blocking in and setting the scene. That's pretty much what this is all about at the moment. And that line is then superseded with a light mark of sea running through, so you can get to see where the water is running in terms of the breeze. And I think you've got to say also that that would actually be quite correct, because if this is on the edge of a breeze, then the skipper is going to be tracking this down to keep with that breeze. I'm assuming, I don't know, I'm not a sailor, but you know, looking at the where this water breaks here and the ripple in here would suggest that there is just a difference between no wind and wind, so it's keeping it onto the wind to come into port, as it were, into harbour. Right, I don't know, that could be a load of old hogwash that I've just given you, but to me it makes sense, but it may not be making any sense to anybody else. That's got a little bit careless there with some white too. I'm just remixing over this whole area, take that through, give that a nice colour running off the front of the boat. So there. You can hear me scratching with my fingernail. It's just allowing me to keep a certain area off the canvas so that I know I'm kind of keep it nice and steady as it goes on. And I'm going to put a bit more of this colour behind. I'm going to check my boat as well, because it does come in not that colour, come on, picked up an awful piece of colour then. Try that one again. Right, there's a little bit of blue coming through there, and it is a bit darker through here. And let's just put that in at the stern, like so, and run that back that way. I can change this blue, lighten it or darken it or make it bluer at any given moment, so which I'm just going to do. I'm just going to make it, took an excess off in the rag. I didn't want too much going on. So it got a little bit too dirty, so I'm just going to run that in that colour. I will check the horizon and straightness in a little while. It doesn't have to be absolute. And you can take that down through there, which means I've now got to change a bit at the front here. Take that off the front of the boat like so, up into there and along the shoreline. I love this area. I love Cornwall, gotta say. If it wasn't for the fact that my family were in Kent, my grandchild and everything, I think I would have been in Cornwall by now permanently. I just so love it. But it's, for now, certainly a holiday destination only. Now then, there is a dark passage of colour through here, which I do just need to check in and do. That is going to be a reflection from, well, between the two sails. There's a little bit of blue sky in there. I think it is blue sky. I did say that it was a shadow, but I am treating it as blue sky, like through to there. But of course that changes there, doesn't it? Because that is headland. I'm going to come back in with a slightly darker value here, which represents, and that's what tells me it is also not part of the sheet. I'm going to take that in there. I'm going to change this colour. It's a little bit too violety. So I'm going to play around with that shortly. So I'm going to try and suggest that it comes down there and the same blue comes through there. Just messes that up a little bit. And I think because of that, this down here has got to be a little lighter so that we can see the difference between one area and another. Don't worry that it's not quite straight up through there on the mast or anything else. We will do the I's and T's further in, but for now I just want to get somewhere about right in terms of value. Coming down to there, and the same off of here. Got a little bit wayward, let's take that off. Okay, I've got to straighten that up too. It's gone a little bit off there. Should be a little straighter into that. And it comes down. Try to pick out and get these values about where they should be before you commit and finish it off. I think we're probably not far off with that. Take that to there. Try to not lose that shape. Keep doing it and then tapping it out and absolutely losing that differential between there and there. So I'm going to stop it at that point there and then carry on back up here, having to change the colour of the headland behind. See, anything about acrylic, look how dirty you get. I carry a rag in my hand, and I don't do that so much with oil, but I'm taking paint out of this all the way through the painting process. So to that end, I keep doing this, and I keep missing the rag and tapping my hand with it. Oh well, it'll all wash off. Now, one thing about this also is be careful of the clothes you wear when you're doing it, because acrylic will get into the fibres of your clothing very, very easily, and is a nasty piece of work to try and ask it to leave. Generally washing won't do it. Once it's dried into the fibres, it's there, because at the end of the day it is plastic. And the one thing you can, some people have suggested that you can put it in the freezer, the item of clothing that's affected, and it will break off. I don't know the truth of that. I've not tried it. All I do know is that over the years I have lost many items of clothing. I'm just checking this level. Seems a little off. I've lost many items of clothing over the years that are down to carelessness when it comes to painting in acrylics. Now I may have to look at that in the cold light of day to see how good or bad that horizon line is, but it's a little lower than I really wanted it to be because of where the sail is. I'm not rubbing it off, I'm just mixing down, blurring off the difference. It was a little too sharp, so I was just taking that back just a little bit. But there's like a flush of light or atmosphere way off into that distance, so that's what I was just putting back in. And come down here, and we've got more of this lovely blue underneath there, which we can see through. Got a little bit lighter under there. Straighten that so we've got a lovely straight to the boom, as it were. Take it off the back there. A nice little glow. And this is just literally using the paint to just glaze over or scumble glaze over the darker. So you get this lovely flush. Not so evident here, although you can do something very similar. Grace, good evening. Now Grace, hi from Windsor, Ontario. Good evening to you. So that is two of you from Windsor, Ontario. I just realised. I was just checking back. I thought I've heard of Windsor, Ontario before, but we have a Steve from Windsor joined us, and now Grace. Good evening to you both, and thank you for taking the trouble to join the oh, that wasn't meant to be, but to join the stream. Thank you. Ah, I see Ben's already made that link. Well done, Ben. I didn't see that. I need more paper. Right, maybe I can stop painting my hands instead. Okay, so I'm going to drop back into the sea now, and I'm just going to bring the light of the sea down. I still want it quite blue, but it doesn't need to be as blue as it is up the top end, but nonetheless it still needs to be quite blue. So I'm going to bring that down and take it all the way down to the bottom of the canvas. The other thing is that sometimes it's very hard to paint in oils and work all over the canvas, because especially when you're not working on an easel in an upright position, which is where I normally like to be. Unfortunately, when you're doing streaming and filming for YouTube and patrons, you can't really paint easily in that position. I've tried it and it's worked, but I think that this way of doing things is just a little easier. I'm going to put this all the way through here and temper some of this now with a bit of green in the water. Not much, just a little bit. It's still very much in the blue zone of this water. The water there is crystal clear and beautiful azure blues and radiates so much light, the sea around Cornwall, and that's, I think, partly why I like it. And also I love the cragginess. I mean, this is the Roseland. This area is very different to everything around here on this peninsula and off towards Land's End from Falmouth is very ragged, very craggy, rocky. It's all poldarky and all that. If anyone knows what I mean by that, it is very much that way. And so it's a very different look. This area here, this is much more subtle. This is lovely sandy coves and beaches, and it's yeah, it's just very, very different. But it's also beautiful in its own right. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. It is a lovely place to be. Just going to put some more colour into here, let that dry out before we come back in and play around with any more of it. Just want to get that set up. I'm enjoying this actually. I haven't done, as I said, I haven't done an acrylic for, well, I can't remember. It would have been a demonstration at the gallery, but unless Wendy, Judy, Ben or anybody else who comes to my studio events will remember when I last did one, I couldn't tell you if it was a year ago or more. I would suspect that it is over a year since I touched an acrylic. Could even be a good deal longer. I'll take that light all the way up into there. It does seem to have the ability just to jostle its way right up to short of the foreshore, and then dissipates as it goes further in towards the boat and the end of the shore. So I'm just scratching it across. I'm just literally using the edge of the dagger right the way through there, and it's just depositing enough paint in a dry brush action, almost dry brush anyway. Nice action all the way through there. Now you can see I have been playing around with some of the values in here, changing them from pure blues to some yellows in there. I'm going to do the same now. I'm going to put a little bit of Naples yellow into some of these. Just bring that, it's a little bit too much, but actually it's probably not that far off. I'm going to stick with that, quite like that, because that is mimicking the light through there off of that head there. Just a little bit of yellowness in the water has made the difference between that coming up there and where this is. So this actually comes down further than I've got this. I'll watch out for that in a moment. So I'm going to put that back to about there, and that changes into that, and I'm just going to leave some of these blues stronger and run the colour horizontally that suggests movement in the water at this point, so the darker base colour will be shown through as the riffles, as it were. So that's all I'm using that for now, and we've got a lovely subtle gentle movement in the water, which is what I was looking for. Just one or two. Make sure if they do vary off the horizontal, not by much, you do get sort of slight movements like that in a ripple, yes, but you don't want to deviate much more than that. Take that all the way through, and while I've got it on board, I want to put a slightly bluer version coming into here, doing the same sort of thing at this point. Slightly darker, one or two of them, and there will be some slightly lighter, and it may be that some get a little bit darker still when we feel our feet and see where we want to go with it. And same here, a few darker ones will not go amiss. Right, so I'm going to leave it there for the moment. I want to start looking at this area again here. Now I did go in very dark, and I'm still on that theme to a point. Now the paint I'm using is a sap green with diazine purple, or dioxazine purple. The problem with both of those is they are pretty transparent as colours goes, as pigment goes. So the covering power can be quite restricted, and just be aware of that. So I'm putting a little bit of blue into that. That's way too much blue, but hopefully it will make the difference where I want it to. I don't want it to be obviously blue like that. That will get worked out. I'm just coming back in and looking at the top of the trees. Now I've turned the brush upside down, and I'm using the tip the other way, and I'm allowing myself then to just tap in tree structure, tree forms in this fashion, like so, watching where I go. And yeah, I don't want to come too far. This big piece here is almost overlapping there, a little bit higher than that. Wipe that back, and we'll repair the area with some sky, but not a problem. Just want to give that a little bit of height off the ground. And there is a little bit of dark that comes up underneath it there. And where are we? Okay, so a lot sooner than I remember. Sorry, Wendy, well done for that. I thought it was a long time ago. So thanks for pointing that out to me. So I did do one more recently then, and that was for, as Wendy says, for a patron live stream. So the world never saw it except my patrons, which is fine. Not a problem with that. That's the way it is. I'm going to put a little bit of burnt sienna, which again is quite a thin colour. Just going to come in there and replace some of that green with some darks in there, like that. There's a little bit of sky popping through, which I will have to put in. One or two other darks and greens through there. Let's just look at this little flat top fella. It's got a nice shape to it. Put that into there like so. Comes very close to the ground, but maybe not as thick as that. It's got a nice stout base there. And a little bit of darkness on the ground underneath it, I guess is shadow, that we can just about pick out and make out. There's a little contour coming down through the side of it here. Just a little tap with the brush and smear off will suggest it. And that leads us up to that little bit of outcrop, which this tree has got its trunk on. We're going to just paint the trunk in very, very simply, just a quick line, a little split in it there, and that gives us that tree as it is. And there are several others that are coming down. I'm going to put marks in suggesting trunks, but of course we can't see too much of that. There are some whacking great trunks in here, and I'm going to suggest one or two with dark marks to start with that we can just about pick out, and then I will lighten some up to create the sense of there being one or two in here, like so, like that. Okay, not a lot more at the moment. I want that to dry up now, and then we continue. But in the short term, I'm going to use some of this green, and I'm going to use some of the blue, and you can see how that's affecting the green, but maybe not enough, I don't know yet. Let's come in here. That's taking it the wrong way. There's a lot of white kicking around in that blue, so I'm guessing that's what did that. So I'm going to make a fresh mix here with some sap green into ultramarine blue. Just going to come down the side in here. Just play around with some of these shapes and forms that I started to earlier when I first put this colour on. Just coming across some of those trunks and annihilating some and putting others in. But I also need to start looking at the green in the tops of these trees. There's green at the tops, and there are several layers like so that are suggesting that they are evergreen. Of what type I would not begin to know. And some breaking out of the tops, and not too light. See, it should be a lot more, should be a lot darker right up there in the tops, because this is almost silhouetted against the wonderful sky. I'm going to try and replace some of those with that. And they are very, very bobbly, so I have no idea what the trees are. I could make a phone call tomorrow and I could actually find out, because the gallery will tell me what they are. But I'm just going to quite happy just to put little sets of green and against the dark, and this is why I put the dark in, so the green would show up in these sort of layered strokes that suggest different conifers of some description in there. Bring them across like so, and they get lost, but one or two show up as this goes further back. And I think that's pretty much all that needs. There's a little bit more in evidence as they come forward. I'm going to put those in. So we've got light, we've got dark, we've got leaves to the front, and obviously shadows on the inside. One or two lighter parts that are very low down. And this is where you can't tell where trees start and ground stops almost. So I'm just going to play around with one or two bits of information on there and onto the edge there, onto that tree. Just bring some of that green up into there, because that's just getting a bit glimpse of light. Oh, I do like this acrylic. I'm getting quite sweet on it again. So, anyone up for another acrylic next week? Just say the word and we can do another one. Don't know what it'd be, but I just love it. I love what it's doing. I love playing around with these little taps, and this is the bit in me that I did warn you against, that you know, you just get, because you can keep work, that you just get more and more detailed. You can play around with these little bits and pieces. So yeah, just know this is the date on your stream. You've been in lockdown too long. That's something I do. Oh, what did I say on my stream? Glennis, you must tell me what I've done, because I'm not aware of it. I thought I checked it out, so obviously I did something that's not right. But yes, you're right about the lockdown. We've been in lockdown way too long. I'm going to actually vary some of the greens and put a bit of dirty greeny blue grey colours in here, just to, by putting the duller blue green greys in, we actually ignite the lighter greens and make them look much more punchy. And that's what I'm doing. I'm using the softer, cooler greys to suggest the lighter greens are really exciting. I'm just playing around with these shapes now. David, you want another acrylic, mate? We will take a poll. So write in the poll, guys, at the end of this, what you want next week. If you want a nice oil or you want a nice acrylic. I don't mind. I'm having fun either way because I'm painting. To me, it's all about painting. What I paint in, I don't really care as long as I'm painting. But yeah, I'm going to bring that down to there. Comes down the side of that a little bit, so I might have to remove that and reshape that a little bit. There's a bit of green along the baseline there, little tufts on rocks or little bits of greenery. It could be even dirty seaweed covered bits of rock. I have no idea from this distance, but as long as it starts to work, we're good. Yeah, I get that, Glennis. Well, I'm glad you told me, because I will change that next time through. Watercolor is always on a Friday, Trevor. So every Friday, no, I don't change that. It's always a watercolor. I love my watercolor, and so to that end, it's always on a Friday, my friend. So you'll always get one a week. It's just that the other day of the week, I do sort of say that we can change the medium from oil to charcoal to drawing to pastels, whatever people really fancy having. I'm going to put a little bit of that dark rock there, which is a little higher than the landscape behind, but hey ho. Bend down a little bit and it'll be right on the mark. That works with me. Just a nice little dark tops to these rocks as they then come down, and dark touching the waterline like so. And we'll let that rest up. I just want to put in the darkish value that's running along the waterline. Just going to put a little line all the way through if I keep my hand pretty steady. A little bit of dancing purple. Take that out to there. Just tap it around a little bit. There we go. Just give that more strength, bit of blue, a little bit of burnt sienna. Just warm some of them marks up just a tad, like so. But they're taps of the brush. They're not. I'm not painting rocks. I'm not painting shadows. I'm just merely tapping out the brush randomly with some control, some degree of purpose. They're not just random without any thought. Of course, that would be stupid, but you get the idea. Going down through, breaking off into some of these rocks on the foreshore. A bit more warmth into there would be good. A couple of darker ones up in here, breaking through. Okay, yeah. Didn't I do a pastel? Oh no, that was a film I did a couple of weeks ago, pastel pencils, wasn't it? Pastels is really hard to do on a live stream because of the room. I'm going to be sort of moving up there, moving down here, to try and do that. I give it some thought, but I don't want to promise it and then not deliver it. So we shall see. But if I can do one, I will sometime. But it won't be next week because I'm playing with acrylics. I'm going to put a little bit down. I'm being silly, sorry. A little bit of dark coming down through here. And I can tweak this, you know, another time as well. It can be more than this, it can be left like this. It's working. And I quite like that headland as it is. Yes, Grace, it's cool. We've got, as I say, there is the twice a week for the live stream. That's a great thing. Well, hopefully it is. You're enjoying it, I'm sure. And then we have every Friday I do a regular lesson in terms of a tutorial video that comes out, or it might be something else. I've just started a new quick and easy theme, which I just filmed the second one today of that series, so that will come out hopefully next Friday. And on top of that, there is my Patreon, which some of the ladies in here tonight can attest to, as to what it is and what it's about. And most of you will have heard of Patreon. It's a great way of supporting me and what I do, as well as getting an awful lot more content and bang for your buck, as it were. Well, I needed that. Alright, let's carry on. Most of this brush work is being done with this. Probably be wrecked by the time I finished it, but hey ho, that's the way it is. Right, I am going to start on the boat. Now, I want to come in with some white, and I'm going to come in. I'm mixing it up with a bigger brush, and I'm using quite a bit of it, and I use a mix of the thicker and the thinner. Now, we'll probably paint this with a smaller brush, probably one of my stolen oil brushes. There we go, that will do the job. That one or that one maybe. Just a little bit more control, and I'm going to come in, and this might take a couple of coats, because to me white in acrylics has been notoriously thin at covering. So I'm going to come down with one stroke down, like so, being very careful, and that will come back up the sheet to there, which means I've got a load of blue sky to put in, which I've completely forgotten. Now that points up there, but not all the way to the top. So this is where I'm sort of checking against what I've done. So I'm going to bring that down, just tidy that line. I want a firm, straight line, and I want a nice, no wave in it as such. This is when you end up starting here and ended up over here, because you keep changing, because you keep making a little error, a little bump in your line. I'm doing it already, I can see it's happening. But the other way to do it is just to go back in with a straight edge and run along the straight edge. That's another way through. Just going to take that to there, and a little bit thicker paint now. Take that line carefully as I can down, nice continuous mark, if I can make it happen, there to that point there. Stick that into that white, that thicker white. Just going to come in with that. Thicker white's fine, and it will cover, but it is not going to be freely moving as the thinner. One is Winsor & Newton, but that doesn't really make a difference. The only company I know that make the thinner white is Liquitex, and it's a thinner white for a main reason. It's got a lot of pigment in it, but I think you'll find that it was designed mainly for airbrush artists and artists that sort of put stuff into an airbrush, and they want the flow. They want the concentration of medium, but without losing the pigment covering power, and that's why you've got that flow into that, if that makes any sense at all. Hopefully that's okay. Now I'm going to touch in the minutest drop of Cadmium Yellow Deep into that mix. And I want to now really fire up the yellow in there. Now I mean fire up the white, sorry, not the yellow. The reason I want to do that is because it was Mr. JMW Turner who worked out and told us all for the future that a little tap of yellow in our white excites the brain and the brain sees a much brighter pigment. Now you can see that this is very thinly going on, and I'm sort of making little indents each side of the brush, which is not what I want, but we shall play around with that and it will not be a problem moving forward. We will get away with that. Just going to put a little bit of that up there and come down that nice light white sail all the way down to the point here, like so. And I don't really want to have to keep going in and changing that, so I'm hopefully that will not cause me a problem. I'm just wondering if I dare run it down with any of this, because this is going to straighten it up. Yeah, I should have done that in the first place. That brush is so nice to use. A couple of little pump outs, but I might be able to go back in with the other blue. I'm probably more reluctant to do so, but I've got to come back in with a bit of sky here, so let's just try and mimic those colours a bit in here. And so if we need to tidy up that sail at the bottom, we can do so there. Take that all the way through there, clean up the shape of our boat at the top like so. Just check our colour, check the value. See, that's not that. We've got to come back in, and what do we do to do that? We've tapped in a little bit of umber into this. I'm going to do the same again now. Tap a little bit of umber in. I've also got to come this way and lighten this a little bit, just so it looks like they are together. Take that all the way out there, but we're going to lighten that. Now here, I just want to see if I can come back down. So a little tap out there, I just dislodged a bit of paint. Seeing if I can ease that into a straight line convincingly without changing the colour too much. Very, very little touches. I think we got away with that. And then of course there is that little bit of light right there that runs through here. Not that much of course, but a little bit would have been good. Just through there to marry up with that through there. I think we're on it. Okay, so for the second sail, Ben, Ontario is 5 hours behind UK, so I think Paul will be streaming at 2 PM Ontario time. Yeah, if that's how it works out, that's how it works out. Cheers, Ben. I have no idea, mate. I rely on you guys to tell me and keep me in check. Now then, I'm going to come all the way up here. This is very, very pointed here. I'm going to do that. I'm going to come down. This paint has gone very watery on me at this point, so I may have to be careful and do this bit twice. And bring that down through there like so. Take that in, run it down, run down the side of the mast, and let that dry off, because that's very, very thin and it's not really where I wanted it to be. I'm going to straighten that up there because it isn't where it should be, and I'm going to come back in with a bit of that blue down through there. Tap that away. Hopefully got away with that. And in here we're going to be using a lot of white too. It's gone very, very thin. I'm not quite sure why that's happened, because unless there's a bit of water laying in the trough here that I didn't see when I put the white there. Possible, but we will work around it, and if it means a second go at this sail, then so be it. That's what we'll do. Nice straight lead edge down, give a lovely curvature to this sail, and it just straightens out about there, coming down to that point. Okay, just let that dry It may not need too much of a second go, but a second go is going to be needed. I know that. Take that lovely straight edge out through to there, and I do mean a straight edge pull, not a crooked one. Not like that, certainly not like that. Okay, just going to run it in, down, finish that little bit off there. Let that dry out and we'll come back onto that very, very shortly. How are we doing for time? I only check the time, so what are we at to? Hour 40. We're not doing bad, guys. Very good. Okay, I'm just going to run that line from there all the way down to there. Join the two. And that's all I want to put into that, because there's going to be a little bit of blue violet, I hope I forgot this right, down here, which is in the sail, the side of. A little bit more in there. Up, 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 up and up, come on. There you go. That comes up into a point there, like that. Did I see Teresa's name pop in? Hi boy everyone, sorry I'm late, just turned in to see how you are getting on. I've never done acrylic, so it's something new for me. Well, there you go. It's a great, it is a great medium, I've got to say. It has its, everything has its drawbacks. I'd be wrong to say that it hasn't got its own, but so is everything else that we use. So I'm going to put that in there just to liven that up, and one coming back that way. Just going to put in some blue violets. I'm going to come and make a little separate pile here. It's got a very deep crease in the sheet at this point where it's not quite picking up the wind enough. And we'll play around with that. And put some more white down the side of this part here. Got a little bit white there. And then it does get a little bit bluer. A lovely tranquil feel about this painting, which I'm really enjoying. Now we'll tidy up some of these marks, they're not final by any stretch. Some deeper blues in here, which I'm missing at the moment. I'll just put one or two of those back in along the edge of that sheet, which has got a straight joint through there, which I'm missing that too. Just come back into that. Touching that right up to there. And we'll come back in with that white. Once it's dry, for the moment, all I'm going to do is just move it around and wreck it. So I'm not going to do that. Just a few sort of pleats forming, suggested by scratching the marks over the top of the white will give the appearance of what I'm looking for there. And a few areas there, and the bottom of the sheet just a little discoloured, a little bit off white, not too far off white, but it is just there, just obviously different, like so. Okay, we can check that in a little while I do need to make my boat white though. It's definitely, most definitely is not white at the moment. So let's just replace this umber that we drew with, and this will take a couple of coats, I know. It's not going to come off the first time. But by leaving a little lead edge of the umber, we're also suggesting a place where we can put in the running line, you know, the lovely sort of teak or wooden finishings to the boat which make these wooden vessels beautiful. A little bit of line across there like so. This, as I say, will have to dry, and then we will go over it again. And that rides up there. Bit of stern coming down to the water. Nice little difference between the water and the running line of the boat there. I'll leave that like that for a minute, and we'll come back and play with that. In the short term, there's a lot of water. I'm not quite sure where it's all coming from. I think it's the soft body has sort of become melted, I think. I don't know. So warm in here, I'm not quite sure what's going on with it. So now we've got a nice bellow reflection out through here, and I'm just using the broken edges of this to suggest that we've got that beautiful whiteness of the sail. And again, from here going out this way, there is that beautiful line of the sail, like so. And it doesn't matter that I'm going over some of the blue, that can be replaced. Just comes down to a lovely point in the sail here, and I've got to turn the brush down because of the lip in the board, I can't get where I want to be. There we go. So that's pretty much that. But I will make it that little yellowish way up in here. Just punch that light out there. And again over on this side, punch some yellow into that white, which will just give that push. This will be equally up with it very, very soon. And so too will this have this lovely white, yellow covering. In fact, it's already going in there. I'm going to let that settle down for a bit. That's still drying. That's still wet. A little bit of pale blue off there. Not as dark as that. Or not as light as that, sorry. A little bit of shadow side on here. This is what's being picked up here. The reflection at the top of that area there. So it just comes out a little bit and then all the way down. Getting a little bluer, a little less obvious white as it comes down. Something like that, I think will work. Same on this side, we've got a bit more of the sea coming in and breaking up some of this white, so let's just put some of that back in. There's a little bit more green into there, which we were using before, so let's put some of that back in. Like that. I've got to say, all my fears over painting acrylics, thinly or otherwise, on this type of canvas have been completely blown away, because this has just worked out so nicely. Got to say, it takes the acrylic very, very well, and I would recommend it. Now, these are natural canvases, they are natural linen canvases, and in the UK they're bought from the likes of some of the big art company trade names, and SAA, I think you'll probably find you'll pick them up from the likes of Jackson's Fine Art. Now, I don't know if You had, is it Michael's in America that is a big art thing? I'm not quite sure. I thought it was Michael's, but you guys will probably tell me if it is. I don't know what's in Canada in terms of art supplies, but all you're looking for is either Loxley, I think, is one. I'm not sure which the brand are that I am using. I should know, shouldn't I? But I can't see them. They're not named, but it is a brand. And of course you've got things like Gerstacker or Gerstacker. Not sure how they pronounce their name. Just putting a few lovely violet tweaks over some of these water marks. Little changes of blue, little subtle changes really add something. I'm going to bring some of those blues into the reflection area so they're cutting across this reflection with a wonderful sense of movement in the water, like so. Breaking it up. And you can almost feel the end of the day, the sort of lovely evening light. You can see people like me standing on the shore watching these boats come in, either with a camera or a paintbrush, and I was doing both, I can assure you. I wasn't standing there idle. I was painting away like a beaver on the other shore, and when I saw something really remarkable like this coming in against the sun, I would just stop, pick up a camera, let off a few images, and then return to the painting I was at hand. Anyway, so yeah, there you go. Lovely, lovely setting. Bring one or two strong ones through here, a little bit closer, a little bit stronger. Okay, that's a bit there. I want to put in a little darker value of dark, deep violet down through there. Just sense there's a little bit of darkness pumping its way down through this line. And it's a bit of a broken one, it's not a solid line, it's just, obviously there's something up in here that's just catching it and making that happen. I'm going to do that and leave it at that. I might lessen it in one or two places with some white just to tap some back in the other way. Just to break up some of these things. A little bit of white just jumping across to the other side of it maybe. Okay, not too much, I don't want to overdo it. Now, is that, I might get away with another coat on there, so I'm going to put in a little bit of yellow this time to that mix, as we were doing with the sails. I'm going to do the same thing with the edge of the boat. Got to be really, really careful because I don't want to keep trying to go into the blues and repairing them. So I'm just going in with that, and I think there is a little drawing error on my part. I need to do that there at this late stage, bring that along. It's still going to need another coat, I can see it already. And they're going to take it all the way down there, like that. And let that ride up. Now what I've got to do in the meantime is I've got to draw in some of the lovely woodwork. So to that I'm going to use some of the Acrylic gold and some of the yellow ochre. Just take the worst off my brush. I want to put in certainly the spit on the front. I'm going to put that in just temporary there. A little bit of the light coming through there, suggesting that. And the warmth on the back there. Very similar little colour. And I want to place in the boom. So I'm going to put that in, giving a lovely glow to that area right there. I haven't finished on that because the boat is got more red in it, so I'm going to come in with some burnt sienna this time, maybe even a bit of that orange into it. I think that actually might be needed in the other parts as well. So we'll let them dry off, and we will come down now with the shape of this, if I've got this right. Now I'm going to have to wait till that paint to dry. That white is going to cause me a problem. See if it'll allow me to come through here with a shape. Not really. Okay, I've got to be patient with that one. We will come back onto it. So I'm going to put in the shadows for the topsail. And put that in there like so. Very, very wet pigment going on. Trouble is, keep sort of putting more and more water into these mixes, and it's got to go somewhere, so it's just spreading around. Anyway, hopefully it won't cause too many more problems. We are very close to the end of this anyway. Just going to put in that lovely shadow area, which has gone a little bit yellowish. I wonder if I can bring some of that back into this side with a bit more ultramarine. Maybe just get it back in like that, and up and down the side like so. Okay, not so bad. Quite happy with the way that looks. And I'm going to put in one or two darks into there. Bit more blue into some of that, so it comes as a nice strong pleat shape, and gets a little thicker as it comes here, because it makes the pleat, or the white in the pleat, disappear. A nice subtle shape round there. Okay. I'm looking at this corner here, has got a bit more white in it. Put some in and just dust it around a little bit, just to not be too strong, but it is there. Okay, and very much the same down this pleat area here. It is light at one point, but it does get a little paler as it comes away from that strength. We're going to put some strength back into it, and I'm just going to run that down so far, and then if I'm careful, just run a little bit of white light all the way into there, making that a little bit stronger still. Okay. Now I think that pleat on the other side here could do with being a little, I think the whole thing needs to be a little less blue. Something just kicked in and said this needs to be a little, maybe even greener blue. And in there too. Just dusting over some of these values just to change their colour value from a warm blue to a yellower blue. I think that was looking a little wrong, and I just wanted to change that. Okay, and I'm gonna put a little bit of that light into this one too as it goes up to the top like so. I'll leave it at that. And right, okay. There's a little pleat down there, but again that's changing colour. That is more greyish in tone. It's catching a little bit of warmth, so let's come down here and let's put that in. It's not very, very strong. A bit of warmth to it. Taking off the excessive paint. Okay, might have got it right. Put a little bit more depth of warm in there at that point. See what that looks like when it's dried up. Right, where else do we need to be? We need to put some values in here. We've got a lot of reflection through here, which is darks. They are umbers and greens and violets, and they are really mixing up the reflections. Now they don't extend any closer than that because the ripple on the water further in is making that dissipate. So we're just going to put in one or two, not as many as you see in the photograph, just one or two that are suggesting the dark reflection of the trees further up. That was a little bit heavy, but I probably think it wouldn't matter because I can go back in anyway. I just want now that I want them to be sort of fairly close together. But what I will say is be careful of the if you use a brush like I'm using, because it can tend to turn on you, turn around, and you don't necessarily want that. What I do want is a bit more blue in that. Okay, so let's just look back into there, a bit darker, a bit bluer. That works. It was looking a little bit insipid brown colour. So you just got to watch when you do this that the brush doesn't turn about on you. When you tap it down, it can catch and just give a little hook to the shape you want, and you don't necessarily want that. And I'm doing it a couple of times myself. It's easily remedied, but it's easily done too. Break up some now, maybe some more sweeping ones this way. Just checking some of these brown. I don't like the brown, I could be honest with you. We can go over it, or we can sort of just take it out and blend it out. Probably the easiest thing to do. Just take some more violets over the top of it. And if you need to, when it's dry, just come back in with a few blue marks, and that will take it out the other way. And it sort of ends in almost a straight line in a sense. Taking a few out through to there, and just one or two marks that suggest that that's really where it sort of ends, and it is just reflections of the trees, which is exactly what it is, of course. Okay, we see what that looks like, and we're pretty much sorted out. I want to let that dry and kind of, it's a bit heavy there, and I sort of felt that it needed a bit of heaviness, but I'm not so sure. Just going to darken one or two up at the back end here, and then we can just pop in with some of the blue ones again, just to play around and mix that up. Excuse me guys, just have a quick drink. Now then, right. Okay, so I'm going to look back in here. I think looking at it, it's dry. That's good. I'm going to come in one more time with some brightish white yellowish colour, and I will have to do one more wait until that dries, purely because I want to get some of the other colours in, and it's preventing me doing it until each layer of this is dry. Just a case of being a bit more patient. Not the most patient person out there, but there you go. I like that. Okay, now there is a lovely sense of light under there, so I'm going to bring that through. Just along there. A little bit of reflection under the back there.
little bit off the front from the other sail there, right off the front of the boat. A few little bits of white water, nothing, it's mixing it up with the reflections, not too much. Just bring that across. And now you could argue that the boat has got a slight colour variance at the very front, a slightly pinkish warm colour through here. Now that's way too much. So what I'm going to do is put some white over the top, dissipate it, make it disappear. But it just gives a shape to the bow as it straightens out there. But what I hope we'll do in a moment, I'll put a little bit of a dark mark in there, and hopefully you'll see what I'm doing. It is still a white boat, that's for sure. What I'm trying to do is put a difference of value in, telling you it's white, but then I want to put in a real punchy glow, if I can get this happening. A little bit of lemon yellow this time. Just a little tad, just to colour it off. That's possibly a little bit too much. And if I can get this working, I just want to put in there what would be a little bit of a glint as the sun's catching that side of the boat there. And that breaks into the water there because it's like a bleed. And you get that sort of sense of extra light popping there. I don't know if that's good or bad at the moment. We shall see. Now I have got to be patient just to finish that off. Is there anything else I need to do? I'm not too sure. We can always find something extra to do, and there's always going to be something you can do. You can actually put some more lights up in here, for instance, while we're waiting for this last part to dry. I've still got a bit of stuff to do on the top and some of the colours and some of the marks. And of course, people are steering this boat and we haven't actually put any crew on yet. I'm just going to play around with a little line of light through this first. So we just vary up some of these rocks. Just catching a little bit of light as they go down. Like so. Okay, and I think there's a little bit of light that I've missed on some of these, so I just want to put that in. And that emphasizes the side of that area that's in shade, almost like a cave, but I'm pretty sure it's not. I think it's just a outcrop here, which is indicated by a very light area of grass right across there, which I've just put in. That suggests that that's what that is, and then a little bit of lighter rocks running off at an angle through there, suggesting that that breaks away. And then what you're seeing here is a very bluish shadow area in here of what's going on, like so, and then it kind of juts back out. I think that's what it is. That's how I'm painting it anyway. I'm sure somebody who knows the area could tell me very differently. I'm going to put some darker green coming down there. And that emphasizes what I've been saying even stronger. Okay, so we'll leave that be there. This is still dry, but what I will do is I will put in a reddish, say reddish, because it's not actually a bright red, it's quite a dirty red. But we know it's red, so we'll put it in as red. There's a little pennant on top, which is quite a bright red, but we'll put that there and see what that looks like. And we can put in our lovely mark. Now all of these boats have got an insignia on this, always carried, I think I'm right in saying it's always carried on the top
of the on this sail here, whatever they run at, whatever their names are, the owners or whatever it is, they're always patterned. They are all different. So at a distance, I assume that you can tell which is which. Now, if I'm honest with you, I actually haven't painted that too well. So I have just destroyed a little bit of work. And the reason I'm just not happy with that is because it was too much of a curve. So I'm going to go back in. I'm going to straighten that up. I don't mind about a little bit of the red showing up the top, because of course that will start at that point, so I'm not too worried about that. And yeah, should have paid a bit more attention. I put too much curvature into it and it didn't need it, so I'm going to come back in again and pay a bit more close attention to the way that should look. Okay, and similarly the bottom end is about right, it's not a problem. It was just a curvature across the white, but of course in rubbing it I've just lost that, so let's bring that back in like so, and we can straighten that up and get that about right. Let that dry out and we're just making amends. I think so anyway. I think that's where it should be. Just going to straighten that up there, take a different route for that one, so I'm going to take that off altogether. I think that's probably safe, and I'll just repaint that section. Not a problem, it happens. No worry, Judy. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on Wednesday. Right, we've got a couple of name or numbers, and I think it says 31. So I'm just going to carefully, as I can, put the words 31 on there. A little bit crude, but it will work. Now hopefully this is dry enough and I can come back in with that lovely line that I tried to put in earlier and couldn't. So I'm just going to see if I can put it in now. And it then goes over the back. And that's the bit of the drawing that was wrong. I'm going to put that in there. Like so. And then of course we've got a little bit more to go in on that. And also on that spit. And at the same time, I'm just going to run some down the Mawes, which comes up to about there. Steady hand needed. Just run it gently in. Just a little darker accent to some of it, shady side. Okay, I think we're pretty, that's a little bit high. I'll stop it about there. And then there's a very, very faint line of dark. It runs down, there's obviously a straight, hard section there that supports that sail anyway. That's still drying, we're nearly there. And I'm going to put a little bit of light on the top of this here. It's just lacking a little bit of light. Pick up a little bit of paint, a little bit of light colour, and just run that in across the top there. Just catching the light on there like so. Maybe a little oranger than I've got. Okay, not so bad. Alright, so one or two figures, one or two dark reds, excuse me, just suggesting the chap under there, under that side, comes kind of the way down, and there is a couple of others on the back, one or two there. Let's give one, it's got quite an orangey back to them, let's give them a bit of colour. Somebody in a nice blue, so I'm going to put some blue in there, but I may have to work a bit hard over that blue. That didn't come out too well. I'm going to put some umber into this to give me a dark, and let's put our second person in here. It's a little bit whooshy in terms of too much water, so just have to be careful that doesn't spread and bleed. And put that guy there and somebody under there, the shadow on that one. It's there. Don't know how many crew they have, so I don't want to go too mad. Someone will pick me up on it, I know. Just putting one or two little bits of detail in, just on the mast there, taking it up a little bit darker at the lower part. Obviously there are ropes and bits and pieces going on. There is also a red. Take care, John. See you next week, mate. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, I need that address from you. A little bit of red something that's hanging off there. I don't know what that is, but obviously it's some part. And it gets a little bit of dark going up to it like so. Alright, let's see if we can just bang this red line in properly this time. Okay, so let's come in here. Nice dark edge to there. And I'm going to light the red as we come out into the light. And hopefully that will come down there and join in. And it won't have such a bend on it. I think that is much more as it should be. A little light tap onto there, on that lovely little pennant at the top there, really punches that. And what I've got to do now is a very thin little line coming down to about through there like so. Tap a light on the front there. Tap that light on the edge of that too, just there. Taking that shape down like so. I think I've got that just slightly too deep there, and I think the front needs to have a little bit more of a punch out this way. We are almost there, but I'm really being quite picky with what's happening here. I want to taper that off a little bit more there. I want to do it without it being obvious, like so. Okay, and that little bit of light up under the boat, just want to put that in, and that will close off that gap quite nicely. And are we there yet? We are almost there. There. Light something up on the top there. One or two little cleats and pulleys that are on the side, taking rope, taking line. I can't see, I'm just going to pull up the picture just to give you a slightly better final look at the vessel and see what I've missed of it much. And put a little line of white light just through there, and a sharp line there.
If anything, I've got this a little bit too short on there, but the owners will have to forgive me for that. There's a line up through there, and something like that. One that comes down through there. A couple that sort of hang down through there. And there are one or two out through there. Like so, and don't tend to put too many in because I don't really know my rigging at all. A little light on there. 1 or 2 taps up on there. And I think all bar the shouting, it's done. It's had a nice bit of fun. I'll give that pennant on the back a little bit brighter red. Yeah, I'm not too unhappy with that. We can always do more, but I think it's fine as it stands. Put that brush down, take that paint away. Just check it over one last time. As I say, you always see something else. I'm going to put in, I've just seen something else. Hehe. So I'm going to put a little bit more light on this chappy at the back here. Because obviously he's catching a bit of the sun. Maybe that one too. There we are. Alright everybody. I hope you've enjoyed that. I'm just going to put a little signature on this one. An appropriate brush, a little bit of dark. Sign it down here out the way. That's way too much water in that. Signature will float away. Do that again. Okay, signed and sorted. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I've had a lot of fun doing it, and we are at 2 hours plus. I do apologise how long that ran over. Normally like to keep them around the 2 hours mark, but this one did run away a bit. But I've enjoyed the creation, and I hope you've enjoyed watching it, and I hope you've learned something about the use of acrylics. Those of you who are still with us, I'm sure some of you have gone. We've lost a few in number now. So yeah, have a go yourselves. We will probably do another acrylic, if not next week, very, very soon. And you know, yeah, it's a lot of fun. But acrylics are and are not like oils. That's the conclusion. They are very different animals, but they have good and bad about each of them. And I think that as artists, if you're learning, you should learn about all media. I think that not just oils or watercolor or one of the others, you just simply keep learning and adding to your vast knowledge, as it were. And yeah, so anyway, I'm not going to ramble too much longer because we are way over time, and you've got lives to do, and I've got to have a clear up here, wash my brushes out before they all go hard, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do about this palette of paint. Is everywhere. It's a big lake of colour. But there you go. You've seen most of it. You've seen the thing. I hope the extra light on here has helped the palette as well tonight. I've employed that now, and we've got a new light working. So hopefully that will make a big difference, and you'll enjoy it. So yeah. Good. I'm glad, Jean. I'm glad you got something from it. That's fantastic. And yeah, I mean, all you can do is have a go, people. And all I can do is show you how I attack something and just throw a few nuggets of information in along the way. And that's what I hopefully have done. And you know, you can use that moving forward. I think I've just seen something on my hill. See, you do see these things. I just want to give that a little shape here. It's gone out a little bit. I'm looking at the photograph, and it just suddenly struck me that there is more of an oval and not a concave shape there. So let us deal with that. Like so. Take that up.
A little bit more light. And I think that's works. There we are. Alright, just see it, sort it and do it. Not a problem. Anyway guys, I will love you and leave you. Hopefully you'll all join me on Friday for a watercolour. And hope you'll get something from that too. In the meantime, happy painting. Stay safe. But keep painting. That's the main thing. That's the message. Keep painting. The more you do, the better it is. All the best, guys. Take care. I'll leave this stream running for a couple more minutes to let everybody say goodbye to each other. And yeah, I'll see you. Yeah, Derek, see you on Friday, mate. You take care. All the best, guys. I think my message thing's just come out. I don't know what that's about. What is? I don't know why that started. There. Anyway, I'm mumbling. All right, everybody. So I'll see you all soon. Take care. All the best. Bye-bye. Thanks, Ben. You take care, mate. Take care, Wendy. See you on Wednesday. Thank you, Glenise. All the best. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope to see you again.